Ben McKee, West Rucker, Go Vols 24/7 here inside of the Spectrum Center where Tennessee and Texas a short time ago wrapped up media day, so to speak, before they square off in the round of 32 with a trip to the Sweet 16 on the line. And before we talk about Tennessee and Texas, I do want to get your thoughts, Wes, on the SEC as a whole, because just a short couple of minutes ago, down goes Florida, down goes Auburn. A&M, last I checked, was trailing Nebraska. We'll see what they end up doing. We'll see what Alabama ends up doing. But yesterday, Kentucky goes down. There's another SEC team that I'm blanking on that lost yesterday.
There were so many. It's hard to keep track of. Yeah,
yes,
I mean,
it's not been good. What do you think that means for Tennessee, if anything?
I don't think it means anything for Tennessee because this tournament becomes a matchup of the team you're playing against and how you match up with that team. Like, for instance, famous last words, I guess you could say, but I actually like Tennessee's matchup with Texas better maybe than I would have against Colorado State, because the way Colorado State kind of likes to strangle the game and make it a rock fight as it was able to do against Texas. I don't know if Tennessee wants any part of that, whereas Texas wants to get out and play some basketball. And I think Texas has a couple of really good scores, but Tennessee has pretty good defensive matchups for them, and I think Tennessee has more depth. So that guarantees you nothing because you got to go play the game. But yeah, I mean, it's been an SEC later kind of tournament so far, and that's one the league's got to take on the chin, right? I mean, you got Tennessee. We'll see what happens with Bama. We'll see what happens with A&M. I mean, a couple of losses that should not have been losses. South Carolina, I don't think that was an upset. I think Oregon was favored for a reason. Colorado's got as many NBA prospects as any team in this tournament, aside from Kentucky probably. So I don't think that, in my mind, was not a big upset at all. I think it's just, Kentucky got upset. There's no doubt about that. Auburn got upset. No doubt about that. I don't know what it means for Tennessee because Tennessee has played a really good non-conference schedule, beat a couple of teams that are still in this tournament. So, I mean, it's a note, but I don't think it spells disaster for Tennessee in this tournament.
No, but it will be interesting to revisit that conversation if Tennessee loses to Texas tomorrow. South Carolina, as you mentioned, and Mississippi State, the other two teams in the SEC that lost yesterday before Tennessee tipped off with St. Peter's. Speaking of Tennessee, Texas, the important subject at hand for Tennessee fans, because Lord knows Tennessee fans could care less about what the rest of the SEC is doing. Yeah. They are smiling ear to ear with what's going on around the rest of the SEC.
This is an SEC game tomorrow, isn't it?
It pretty much is, and already is. You kind of asked Rodney Terry or Rick Barnes about it earlier. Third matchup in 3 years. A lot of familiarity on both sides with the coaching staff, with the players. And, simply put, it'll be a fascinating matchup, but Rick Barnes and Rodney Terry have made no bones about the fact that they wish that they were not playing each other.
Yeah, both of them very clearly said that. I mean, they've said, if I had to pick who I would play in this tournament, this would be the last person I would want to play in this tournament. I mean, Barnes has friends all over the college game, right? I mean, your Izzos and your Fews, obviously Calipari. He's got it's a brotherhood, and he's kind of like one of the old elders, of that group in terms of kind of a revered figure now in some circles. But at the end of the day, you're going to run into people that you love. And you have to try to beat. I mean, Zakai Ziegler played against his brother yesterday. But Rodney Terry is someone who played for Rick Barnes, someone who worked for Rick Barnes. They are close, right? I mean, Rodney Terry texted or called, I forget which one it is, Rick Barnes the night that they beat South Carolina and won the SEC, clinched the championship. He called or texted him that night congratulating him. I mean, they genuinely love each other. But, I love my brother too, but if it's me or him, it's two dogs, one bone. I mean, it is what it is, right? I mean, you got to go out there and you got to play the game.
Absolutely. And I actually think that because of this familiarity, I think that's a great thing for Tennessee, because in speaking to a lot of players in the locker room, when I would ask them, hey, what do you remember about those Texas matchups the last 2 years? They would talk about how it really didn't come down to X's and O's. It came down to who wanted it more and who played harder. They know it's going to be a dogfight. That will obviously benefit Texas as well, but I think it's a great thing. I mean, Dalton Connect, even though he hasn't played, he kind of said it was a rivalry game or had that feel to it. And Josiah, I asked him about those comments, and Josiah kind of agreed as well. The fact that they know that they have to be ready from the jump and play with an extreme level of intensity, I think that bodes well for Tennessee, that there's familiarity, and it's basically like an SEC game, like you said.
There's tons. I mean, obviously Olivier Comeau was a big part of Tennessee beating Texas last season, and Max Asmus was not at Texas, Dalton Connect was not at Tennessee, so that automatically kind of changes the vibe there. But the systems, there are no mysteries. I mean, Tennessee knows what Texas wants to run. Texas knows what Tennessee wants to run. Now they're going to throw wrinkles in there, that a little trap or press or doublings. There's going to be some wrinkles, but it's not going to be like a foreign language to these guys. They know each other, and it's going to come down to, in a lot of ways, to who's being more physical, but also who's making shots. I think Rick Barnes made a really good comment today, and it wasn't the first time he said this. Playing well and shooting well are not the same thing. Sometimes you play well, but you don't shoot worth the flip and you lose. Sometimes you play horribly, but you shoot terrifically and you win the game. There's all sorts of X factors there. But if Tennessee goes out there and is aggressive, is on the front foot, plays with no fear, it's got a better team than Texas. It's not like the St. Peter's game where it's no contest. It's a contest. It absolutely is. But Tennessee's favored by about a touchdown for a reason, because Tennessee's got the better roster.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this. The team isn't making too much out of it to where I think they're going to overcompensate and play poorly because of it. But in speaking to several players, they absolutely want to stick up for Rick Barnes. Josiah Jordan-James told me that he did not agree with, and the team did not agree with, the way that Rick was treated and handled on the way out the door from Texas, and they kind of want to stick it to Texas for that reason. And also, I believe it was Josiah that said it might have been Jemai Mashak, that said they want to validate everything that Tennessee basketball is about, because apparently that didn't work for Texas there, so they want to validate everything that Tennessee has done to this point against the school that did not feel like Rick was doing a good enough job. And Zakai talked about wanting to stick up for Rick. Santi talked about it. This team really does want to stick up for Rick Barnes tomorrow. They may not be talking about it a ton, but they certainly want to stick up for their head coach.
There's no doubt about that. But I think it's important to remember that with Barnes now, his main beef was with the AD at the time, who's no longer there, and Barnes could have stayed if he had dismissed his staff. But anyone who knows Rick Barnes knows what that answer is going to be. You're not telling him that he has to fire his guys. He's not going to do that. So it was a firing, but also almost a real mutual parting of ways. And Rick Barnes has said it 3 years in a row now. He said, listen, that's a part of my life, and I'm grateful for it. I got nothing but love. His family's still there. But he's a Tennessee Volunteer. He has been for almost a decade now. Like that's, it's part of being a coach, is that you have to roll with the punches here. But if you want to get down to it, Texas didn't want him. Tennessee did. So that's where they are. And the players, they love that man. They want to win for him. They want to win for each other, but they also want to win for him.
Absolutely. It'll be a fun one here in the Spectrum Center in the Queen City tomorrow. 4 terrific brands playing basketball. You got North Carolina, Michigan State here at 5:30, leading into Tennessee and Texas with a trip to the Sweet 16 on the line.
Yeah, last thing I wanted to say really quickly was Josiah Jordan-James today said that when he got to Tennessee, they wanted to become sort of the standard in the SEC. Now they want to be the standard of college basketball. It's a great quote, but you got to back it up. If you want to be the standard, you go win games like this, and you go win a couple more.
Absolutely. They'll try to do so tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern on CBS. We've got plenty of coverage leading into the game up at GoVols247.com. He's Wes Rucker. I'm Ben McKee.